Alright everyone, hey, what's going on? Just gonna make a quick video today. I just gotta say, this is a game that just keeps surprising you. A surprising amount of depth. I would never think it would be a week after the game came out. And you'd still be figuring out weird little things about the game, but here we are. So one thing I want to thank CPU for Brain and the Discord for noticing is you can do some pretty interesting things with ramp-up skills. So see here on the Gosharog greatsword I have, and this isn't my greatsword set, so don't go copying it. It's just something I had on. I have attack boost 4 on that. And you're like, oh, that's cool, you got attack boost 4, but isn't that impossible? Because when we look at the weapon tree, Gosharog only has Affinity Boost, Ice Boost 3, and Brutal Strike. The way you do that is you go ahead and make yourself a Kimura Tree Greatsword, set your Rampage skill there, and then upgrade that Greatsword in the Gosharog tree, and it keeps it. It keeps it the whole upgrade tree along the line, and that works for everything. So, in a lot of cases, you'll be looking at, like, say, the Diablos Lance. And, of course, it all depends on how you want to, like, build your weapon. You know, maybe you do want to try and run Affinity on there. That's perfectly acceptable. But if you go earlier in the line, you probably don't want it from Rhinopolis. But even then, you have to worry about it there. You can get attack boost, too, on the Bone Tree, and then that should carry to Rhinopolis. And then that would carry to Diablos. I'm not saying that's necessarily the best way to build Diablos, depending on how you're building your weapon, but it is an option, and it's very interesting. And what will only make it more interesting is as further updates from this game comes along, and we see even more branching trees, the depth through which you'll be able to go in and start setting up ramp skills even earlier in the tree is only going to, like, multiply the number of ways you can customize your weapon. So, excellent find. Super interesting. I'm sure it's going to have a lot of people going back to their weapons, looking at them and saying, like, oh, do I have the Rampage skill that I want in my weapon right now? Or is there something that I could have gotten from an earlier tree and carried it on? All right, there's one other thing I want to mention, and this is something I still need to do a little bit more testing to really understand what the math is. And what I'm about to show you is definitely the most extreme example of that. So this is the Anjanath bow. It's a very powerful fire bow. And what I want to get into is what appears to be some sort of an elemental cap. So this isn't really necessarily a bow you would want to run as like a crit element bow anyways, in the sense that it doesn't have very good affinity. And you can see we're hitting on a crit for 64 damage. And that's with 3 points of crit element. Well, when I get rid of crit element, we go down to 2 points of crit element. We would assume that 64 on a crit would be less, right? Because each point of crit element gives us an extra 5%. No. Still hitting for 64. Alright, well that's weird. Alright, in that case, let's take off 1 more point of crit element. Alright, now we've only got 1 point of crit element. And we try and attack the head again. It's still 64. Alright, now it's getting really weird. Okay. Let's just take off the chest, I guess we have. Let's make sure we still have 5 points of fire attack here. $63. So that 1 point of crit element, even though it should have been adding 5% of my element up, only gave me 1 point of damage. So, again, it's not like you're likely to be running crit element on weapons that kind of like a low base element anyways. But I guess what I'm trying to say is when you're building a set and you have any element on it, go in and really play around with the number of fire decos that you have in, or whatever. Whatever, fire, ice, dragon, water, doesn't matter. Decos along with crit element, because there does seem to be some sort of a cap on there. Now, certainly, if you have a weapon that has an extremely high base element, like we're looking at Heaven's Glaze here, which is a base 50 ice bow. This seems to be able to take every point of crit element that I can give it. So that's hitting at 76 on a crit. And if I get rid of this 1 point of crit element here, let's get a crit here. It's hitting for 74. So that's 2 points of damage, which, you know, I mean, that adds up a lot more. Certainly much more than just 1 point for a bow that is primarily raw-based, such as the Anjanath one. So 2 tips there, right? You've got your Rampage skills. Make sure to check earlier in the trees. Second, when you're fine-tuning your sets with element, just make sure to really try and play around. Make sure you're not hitting any sort of a cap on your elemental damage. In those cases, you're usually building it primarily raw-based, and you're just looking at the element as a bonus, which is pretty much how you should be looking at them. Those of you who want to see the Ice Bow set, I actually have 2 of them. One of them is based on whether or not I want to have aim booster before I got my really good aim booster talisman. This is an interesting one that I have that actually has no weakness exploit for one of the later monsters in the game. But I think this one's my standard. Getting up to level 4 charges is just so nice. If you're wondering where to get the Mighty Bow Feather, I'll show that. You're going to need Ace Hunter coins by doing arenas with this guy. And the only way you can do that is by making sure to do all the main monsters in, I think it's 7-star. I don't want to give any spoilers, people that are trying to stay spoiler-free. So figure out that on your own if you really need to know. Ask in my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/sdshepherd. So again, I want to thank CPU for Brains for making this game even more amazing. Oh my god. Okay, all right. I will see you guys soon. Until next time, good luck. Have a good hunt.